All right, we begin this morning on immigration, set to take center stage this week. President Trump's travel ban was blocked again, just hours before it was supposed to go into effect. And now it is being brought to the attention of judges, 5 Republicans and liberal judges in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals who took up the issue. Joining us in our third seat this morning on the Hill, Ali Noorani, the executive director of the National Immigration Forum and author of There Goes the Neighborhood. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. Good to see you.
Interesting title to your book. Just quickly tell us a little bit about what you're getting at when you say that.
Well, last year I spent about 6 months on the road interviewing about 60 conservative and moderate faith, law enforcement, and business leaders. And the case that we're making through this book is that the immigration debate is more about culture and values than about politics and policy. And I think the way you read the debate and the way that people are struggling with it today, it's not about what we're saying here in D.C., it's about how neighborhoods are really changing. Well,
certainly, I mean, it's fair to say that D.C. is stuck in a bubble, not always connecting with the rest of the country. But what was your take and reaction from your experience to the reaction to the second executive order? Many people argued that this one was constitutional and could make it through, though the ruling doesn't necessarily say it's not, but you understand where I'm going.
This all goes back to December 7th, 2015, when candidate Trump made a very clear statement, a statement, in fact, that is still on his website, that he was going to advocate for a complete ban on Muslim immigration. So the intent of this order is to ban Muslim immigration to the United States. And we see that it is only the first step. So the First Amendment of our Constitution, you cannot establish a law or a policy based on a religion. That's what we are working with here.
Yeah, and every time now that this has come up, those statements are cited in these decisions. So, not only what he said, but also what Rudy Giuliani says that he was told.
And Steve Miller says.
And Steve Miller as well. So, Ali, as they move forward on this, they might try a third time to write this. Are they ever going to be able to get around the things that came out of their own mouths?
There's actually a much better way to keep the nation secure than, authoring these very, very flimsy executive orders. If we want to keep the nation secure, we need to build trust with the Muslim community, whether they're here in the U.S. or overseas. We need to make sure that people are sharing intelligence with the FBI, CIA, making sure that our armed services are safe. These orders do nothing to actually improve national security. If we want to do that, there are much, much better, smarter ways.
So is the answer there no, because what they said is going to wipe out any kind of attempt to reinstate this?
If they keep trying to move executive orders that focus on majority Muslim countries, we're going to be spending a lot of time with lawyers.
It just seems crazy that something that the president said in 2015, however shocking and offensive and inappropriate it was, if the executive order doesn't include that, if the president has the power to suspend immigration when he feels it's necessary, and it is in fact a temporary ban on 6 Muslim majority countries, but it is in no way a Muslim ban with all of the majority Muslim countries not included, that this executive order can never get executed. It does kind of boggle the mind.
It boggles the mind that they haven't actually been able to make a case from a national security perspective. So they leaked a memo from the FBI on the day this was announced that there were 300, I think, refugee cases under investigation. There was no sense of where those refugees were from. There was no sense of what those actual cases were about. This is an administration that is not focusing on national security in a smart and strategic way. That's our concern here.
Well, I don't know how mind-boggling it is, because you only have to turn to the words of the President of the United States, who said it was a Muslim ban. He's the one who said that.
Not nobody. What he said. Can the president never adjust something, change something, differentiate what he previously said to what he's saying now, respond to criticism and people? It just seems outrageous to point to something from 2015. The press secretary was asked about this in the briefing. Would the president sort of change his tactics, if you will, because these statements that he has made have come back to bite him? I mean, there's no doubt about it. The answer was flimsy, because I'm sure any suggestion that you can control the president is, no one's going to make that suggestion.
Well, at some point, the president also has to control himself. And if this is a situation where his own words are derailing his agenda, then there's a lesson to be learned from that in this administration. Watch what you say, because at some point you're going to have to answer for it in a court of law, and it's interrupting what they're trying to do right now. And once again, they have gotten in their own way, and they've caused their own problems.
Absolutely. And when you have Steve Miller, the senior policy advisor, saying the policy outcome of the second order will in essence be the same as the first order, and the first order was struck down so quickly, I mean, come on, guys.
I want to ask you another aspect of this immigration thing. Obviously, you're focusing right now on what we're talking about as far as the travel ban. Obviously, we've had a lot of conversations at this table about the border wall. Has there ever been a conversation about what's going on as far as immigration coming from overseas to the question of immigration coming up from Mexico and Central America and South America?
Well,
Is there any similarity there to you?
Well, I mean, I think from the first segment that we saw, the only thing that needs a better wall is the White House.
It's hard to argue with that.
Yeah, exactly. But what's really missing here is a functioning legal immigration system. So whether somebody is coming from China or from El Salvador, there are very, very few opportunities for somebody to enter the country legally. So therefore, people are making really difficult and challenging decisions to whether they're overstaying a visa or entering without inspection. So if we had a functioning legal immigration system, then we would actually be having a much more secure.
But to Veronica's point a minute ago, why is it okay to say that we are going to, and it's legal to say that we're going to limit Latinos who immigrate to the United States, but you can't say that when it comes to people from Muslim majority countries?
But there is no, so let me try to unpack the question there, because we have a legal immigration system that's not meeting the needs of our workforce or our economy. And that lack of a system applies to, again, Central America, Latin America, Asia. What the executive order is doing is proactively barring somebody who is a refugee and has actually gained, has gone through a legal process.
So they're different.
They're very different.
Yeah. It's interesting, my reaction to even hearing you bring up this point, which is a conversation that we should have. There is so much anger and heat and nonsense in this that you can't even really bring up a functioning legal immigration system without offending people, without enraging people, about suggesting legal immigration is something that should be addressed. And I guess my point about saying that, can we not move past a statement from 2015 if it seems that the administration is willing to move the conversation forward, because that's what we need to do. Now, there is certainly a conversation about whether or not the ban is all of these things that you've brought forward and people disagree on, but we can't continue to stop the conversation.
I completely agree with you. And in fact, that's what I brought out in the book, is that there are people, there are pastors, police chiefs, local business owners who are Trump voters who actually want to see a conversation move forward because they've come to know the family in the pew one row over, their children's best friend, the household right down the street. They're undocumented. They're on the ground. When you get out of D.C., there's actually a real thirst for a solution. And, this administration has such an incredible opportunity. Republicans have an opportunity. They're going to get full and fair credit for everything immigration related.
There's an old saying, only Nixon could go to China. That might be something for them to look at. Because this is a president who, whether you like him or not, has really turned over the cart when it comes to this discussion. He alone might be the person to be able to kind of get both sides on the right and on the left if they are able to kind of broach this in some way, the way that Richard Nixon was, a staunch anti-communist, was able to open up the door to China.
Well, let's look ahead to this upcoming week. Monday, hearings will begin for President Trump's pick for the High Court, Neil Gorsuch. Now, it's been 13 months, if you can believe it, since the death of Justice Antonin Scalia. The Senate is finally holding confirmation hearings to fill that vacancy. But what will the hearings actually look like, and what will come out from those hearings? Many people suggested that the hearings for Gorsuch would be, Republicans would be smooth and quick. Do you expect that?
I don't think so. I think you have a Democratic Party that's getting an incredible amount of pressure from their base. We're going to see hearings. They're going to have some piercing questions. And I think Gorsuch is going to have to really prove to Democrats that he is a moderate Republican that deserves their vote.
Well, here's the thing, though. Do they need to be, you got to pick and choose your fights at point sometimes. Neil Gorsuch going on this court would not fundamentally alter the makeup of the court as we have known it. When Antonin Scalia was on that court, spent 3 days listening to health care hearings, President Obama's health care was passed. D.C. versus Heller was struck down. The balance of this court would remain intact if you replace Gorsuch for Scalia. Isn't it the next one? Isn't it the next justice who retires from the court? That's the big fight. Don't you hold your fire for that one? Because if it's Ruth Bader Ginsburg or if it's Anthony Kennedy, hold the door, because that one is really going to be the big fight. How does Neil Gorsuch replacing Antonin Scalia really change the makeup of the court as we've known it the last few years?
I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It doesn't change the balance in a big fundamental way, but I think we also have to just understand the political environment.
Right.
The amount of anger, as we were talking about earlier, that is out there and frustration Democrats are looking for an outlet. I think there is a long game to be played here, but there is you have to play it on both sides, meaning that Republicans have got to say, okay, let's get to a deal on Gorsuch, and then let's try to find if we need another candidate, another nominee, let's try to find somebody to get everybody's support.
And Tom, you do bring up an interesting point, but the Democrats, after what happened with Merrick Garland, I mean, the anger and the divide is palpable. Speaking of the ugliness of this these hearings, the story just came out about Gorsuch when he was a DOJ lawyer arguing that Gitmo would, if you visit Gitmo, it would dispel myths. Listen to me, I don't know what's wrong. I'm sorry. Dispel myths about the treatment of detainees. I mean, you already see this slow trickle of some not great headlines about Gorsuch that I think we will continue to see more. It doesn't mean he won't be confirmed, but it's not going to be nice and easy.
Right. In the eyes of the American people, you think Neil Gorsuch really kind of helped himself, not only by his performance that night we saw him when he was introduced in that kind of, game show reveal in the Eastern, but also, a couple of days later when, President Trump sent out that tweet about the sold cold judge. Widely quoted on Capitol Hill was Neil Gorsuch telling senators up there that he found that discouraging. What do you think that says to people? And did that help him as people, how they view his judicial temperament?
I think it did help him. I think that he's going to have a line of questioning, whether it's wiretapping, surveillance, distance or the independence of the judicial branch. He's going to have many opportunities to distance himself from the administration and really try to rebuild the autonomy of the judicial branch. And that's something that I think we need to remind ourselves that this is, it's not a political body. It is a body of independent judges who are making very, very important decisions.
All right. Ali Noorani from the National Immigration Forum, we thank you so much for joining us on Thursday. You come back?
Absolutely.
We always get people to come back.
Great to have you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right.